Episode 26, Liberation. Luigi stood on the top floor of Peach's castle, facing the window and looking over Toad Town. The Toads were still hard at work constructing the wall. Already the town was looking clearer than it had in 2 decades, although work on reconstructing the damaged Toad houses had been stalled. That wasn't what Luigi was looking at, however. He was looking at the plains beyond Toad Town. They were empty. With no warning whatsoever, the 5 battleships that had approached Toad Town had left. They had left no troops behind, and had not fired even a single bullet bill at the newly freed town. This perplexed Luigi. If it had simply been a spying mission, why had they not bothered to conceal themselves? Why had they brought 5 entire ships, when one smaller ship could have done the job better? He felt equal unnerved and relieved. On one end, Toad Town was safe. On the other side, this could just be the startup of a Koopa Troop scheme to destroy the town for good.
Still suspicious, huh?
Came Toadette's voice from behind him. Luigi turned around to see Toadette walking up the hallway, a concerned look on her face.
I mean, why wouldn't I be?
Luigi asked, coming over towards her.
You know Bowser. This isn't like him. Why would the Koopas just leave? Your guess is as good as mine.
Toadette shrugged.
Think on the bright side, Luigi. We've got more time to prepare our defenses. Toadbert's made some great progress on the Bill Blasters and we're planning to rig some of them up early this evening. He's also trying to come up with some theories of the battleship's design. If he can target weak points, then we'll have a way to fight against them even though we're drastically outgunned. That's great.
Luigi smiled, before walking past Toadette down across the hallway.
Where are you going?
Toadette asked.
To check on the town.
Luigi replied. Frightening images of the fall of Toad Town flashed through his mind. Very soon, something like that could be happening again. It was his duty to prevent that from happening. Even though Toad Town had never looked more cheerful, the atmosphere around the people was even darker than it had been during the Koopa Troop occupation. As Luigi walked down the road to Town Square, he saw nervous people peering out of the Toad houses, glancing up at the sky. The happiness, which had recently come back, had vanished. Some of Luigi's optimism was restored once he reached the town square. Several Toads were practicing combat moves there, jumping and kicking imaginary Koopas. The technique was sloppy, but Luigi could see the beginnings of a fighting style that resembled his own. The Toads weren't like Cobalt, who had been fighting all of his young life, so it was only naturally it was taking them longer to become competent fighters. But they were still making great progress.
You're doing great!
Luigi exclaimed, walking into the center of the square and gazing around at his pupils.
George, don't lift your leg up too high, you'll just get unbalanced. Sure thing, Luigi!
A blue-capped Toad exclaimed, before launching into another kick that was significantly better.
Oh! Luigi!
Came the voice of Billy, who ran up towards him. The yellow Toad looked a little nervous.
Some people want to see you. Yeah, finally you're here, Luigi!
Came a gruff voice to Luigi's left. Luigi, unfortunately enough, knew that voice only too well. There, standing in one of the avenues next to the old item shop, now bar, were the yellow and purple brothers themselves.
Yeah, you slowpoke!
Waluigi laughed, pointing at Luigi and laughing. Luigi glared at him. He really wasn't in the mood for immature jokes right now.
Wario and Waluigi! Why are you here?
Luigi asked.
Are the supplies in? Yeah, they're in.
Wario nodded, picking his nose. Luigi turned away, feeling disgusted. Did his brother's old rival have no manners at all?
But hey, Luigi! There are more important things going on.
Luigi turned back to look at him. Thankfully, he wasn't picking his nose anymore.
Like what?
Luigi asked curiously.
You've heard of the war? Right.
Wario asked. Luigi nodded. He had just heard of it from Cobal.
Well,
Wario said, his wide mouth twisting into a smile,
the entire Koopa troop is getting involved. Apparently the Mushroom Kingdom is considered low risk, or whatever, because most of the troops are gone now. Apparently even the governor's gone. There's only a bit of new recruits guarding Mushroom City. My gang's got them outnumbered 5-1.
This was interesting news, indeed.
What are you saying?
Luigi asked, scratching his head.
Come on, are you stupid?
Waluigi yelled.
We're saying we can take over the city.
Luigi's eyes widened. Take over Mushroom City? It had seemed so well guarded back when he had visited it with Cobal. But Wario had no reason to trap him. While both brothers were about as trustworthy as King Boo himself, they had nothing to gain by betraying him.
I have to see this for myself,
Luigi decided. Luigi left Toad Town in the charge of Toadette. He felt guilty leaving it even for a moment, but he knew he had to see this for himself. If Mushroom City was vulnerable, he had the chance to strike a decisive blow against the Koopa Empire. When Luigi and the Wario brothers arrived in Mushroom City via warp pipe, Luigi was shocked about how different the city seemed. It still looked worn and beaten down from the battles that had been fought over it, and the Koopa Empire banners still hung from the buildings, reminding everyone of who was in charge. But there was a change in the city that Luigi noticed as he walked down the sidewalk behind Wario and Waluigi. There were many Koopas, of course, but most of them seemed civilians. He could see virtually no soldiers at all.
They were right,
Luigi realized as he continued down the sidewalk, past a boarded-up old item shop.
With no soldiers, the city is basically defenseless.
The Koopa Empire banners fluttered in a light breeze. Luigi looked at them as the trio turned a corner. He shouldn't be this hopeful. Should he? Inside the headquarters of Wario's criminal gang, Luigi sat down with the Wario brothers around Wario's table. Luigi noticed that it had been repaired since the time Wario had smashed it when they had first renewed acquaintances.
Okay, so here's the dirt,
Wario said, crossing his arms and looking first at Waluigi, and then at Luigi.
The old news broadcasting tower is where the Koopas have their main base. Most of the soldiers are going to be there, and at the shipyard. Got that? Why? Yeah.
Luigi nodded, looking down at the map of Mushroom City Wario had down on the table. It was an old map from before the Empire, but the Koopa troop bases had been marked, rather crudely.
Wario, I you to split your gang into 3 groups. Huh?
Wario asked, scratching his head.
Aren't we going to charge in and smash everything? No, you'll get some of that done. Just listen to me,
Luigi replied, trying to be patient. Trust Wario to be thick-headed at a time like this.
On 3rd of the gang will secure the shipyard. The 3rd will patrol through the city, picking off the troops on the streets. Finally, the last 3rd will attack the main tower, on my signal. I'm kind of having a hard time following all this,
Waluigi complained. Luigi shot him a dark look.
I am going to smash a window in the tower,
he explained, going over the plan he had hurriedly constructed, before turning to Wario.
Wario, do you have a map of the tower? 1 second,
Wario said, before standing up and yelling,
hey, get me a tower map, or I'll slug ya!
Faster than Luigi had thought possible, a Goomba hurriedly arrived and brought Wario the map. Wario spread it out before Luigi, who studied it. As he had expected, the map showed the tower before the Koopas had taken it, so he'd have to guess where their important rooms would be. The main broadcasting room. That was the most critical part to hit. He had to stop them from signaling another Koopa base, or this could all be over.
I need a power-up,
Luigi announced, looking at Wario.
We got M.
Wario nodded.
Koopas try to keep M away from us. That just makes me want M more.
Waluigi laughed hysterically. Luigi stood up, his limbs feeling shaky with nerves.
Do you understand what you have to do, Luigi? I'll figure it out.
Wario shrugged.
Remember?
Luigi said, leaning over the table, unfortunately far too close to Wario's garlic-scented breath,
once I break the window in the tower. Attack!
For a group led by Wario and Waluigi, the Mushroom City criminal gang worked very efficiently. Only an hour later, Luigi was standing on the roof of a skyscraper, gazing up at the television broadcasting tower, the highest in the city. A breeze blew past Luigi as he stared out over the battle-scarred Mushroom City, once a haven of life and freedom. He crushed the cape feather in his fist. Magically, a brown cape materialized on his back, flapping in the wind. Luigi narrowed his eyes, focusing on the window he knew led into the broadcasting room. This was it. His first step since Toad Town towards destroying the Koopa Empire. Luigi leapt from the building. He let the wind flow through his cape, letting him glide through the air, hundreds of feet above the ground. He tried not to think about what would happen if he messed up his glide. All that mattered right now was making sure the people of Mushroom City were free. Luigi hit the window. Glass shattered all around him as his fist punched into the broadcasting room. Around him, the Koopa troop members, who had previously been loitering around, shouted and stood up, scattering papers and the food they were eating everywhere. Luigi did not stop to catch his bearings. He spun around, knocking 2 Koopas away with a spin of his cape before going in with a punch to take out a third.
Stop him!
A Goomba shouted, leaping into the air for a head bonk, but Luigi pulled back his fist and slugged the Goomba in the skull as he came hurtling towards him.
By the stars, that's Luigi!
A Koopa screamed.
Impossible, he's dead!
A Shy Guy shouted. Luigi leaped through the air, knocking the Shy Guy out with a stomp and vaulting over towards the Koopa, kicking him in the head and sending him flying across the room.
We need to inform Bowser's castle.
A Shy Guy panted, rapidly pressing buttons to open up communications. He wasn't able to finish. Luigi grabbed a chair and hurled it at him, knocking him out cold. Luigi stopped to take a breath. Every Koopa troop member was lying knocked out. Glass covered the floor. Then he headed towards the door. This wasn't over yet. Luigi ran down the hallway. A duo of Koopas ran at him, but Luigi spun around, catching their necks with his cape and knocking them against the wall. A Boomerang Bro hurled his weapon at him, but Luigi leapt over it and came down hard on the Boomerang Bro's head. Below him, he could hear the sounds of chaos. Wario and his gang had entered the building. Luigi bolted down a flight of stairs, punching a red-shelled Koopa out of his path along the way. A sledge bro ran at him, but Luigi sprang forward, letting the cape take him through the air, zipping down the stairs like a bullet. It struck the sledge bro, sending him flying 10 feet away. He swung open the door, catching a Goomba with it, before heading down another bare hallway. A shy guy screamed loudly, running past him. The elevator door opened, and a squad of tattooed Koopas and Toads wearing leather jackets poured out.
"Hey, Green,"
the lead Toad said in a drawling voice.
"You taken care of the guys up top?" "Why? Yeah."
Luigi nodded.
"It's a good." "That's golden."
The Toad nodded.
"The boss is blasting through floors like a maniac. We'll be in control of the tower in."
An adjacent elevator door was suddenly punched away as Wario swaggered out of it.
"Now."
"10 minutes later, Luigi sat on the steps outside of the skyscraper. This was impossible to believe. Against all odds, they had somehow seized Mushroom City. Maybe the stars really were shining down upon them after all. Two rough-looking Toads were laughing a few feet away from him, tearing one of the Koopa Empire banners into shreds. Wario's other two divisions had worked just as well as he had hoped. Both the shipyard, including 3 warships, and the entire city were now under their control. If only Cobalt had been there to see it. If only Peach, Mario, and Daisy could've. Wario came down to sit next to him, which instantly caused Luigi to move a few inches away. That smell really was something.
"Glad you signed up with me now, Luigi."
Wario laughed, patting him on the back. Luigi winced. That Wario sure had some strength in that arm, that was for sure.
"Thank you, Wario,"
Luigi said respectfully.
"Without you, we never could have done it."
Waluigi walked over, laughing.
"Hey, we get something out of it too, Greenie,"
he cackled.
"Now we get to show those Koopas exactly what we think of them."
Luigi's face was stern.
"We aren't tyrants, Waluigi. Most of the Koopas who live in the city are just innocent. Even if they are Imperial citizens, that doesn't mean they are evil. If you harm any of them unprovoked, this partnership is over."
"Fine," Wario growled, shaking his head and standing up.
"You ruin all the fun,"
Waluigi complained, walking away. Luigi watched them go. Already he could see Toads gathering at the sidewalks, looking up in astonishment at the banners the criminals were shredding. Maybe he ought to go spread the good news himself.
"Luigi!"
came a stern voice to his right.
"Huh?"
Luigi asked, turning around. Standing in front of him were 3 unfamiliar figures. 2 of them were Toads, wearing dark sunglasses. The third of them was a Koopa Troopa, one with a darker, grayish shade of skin and a blue shell, traits which identified him as a
shady Koopa
from the north of the Koopa Kingdom. He was also wearing dark glasses.
Who are you?"
Luigi asked, feeling a bit concerned. There was something about these people that indicated they meant business.
"We are representatives of Fire Flower,"
the Koopa said, his hands clasped behind his back.
"Our leader has heard of your revolutionary activities. He invites you to come meet with him in Koopa Central. We are pleased to hear you are alive, Mr. Luigi. The end of the Koopa Empire seems closer today." Well, I guess,"
Luigi asked, looking into the Koopa's face. He had a feeling that from now on, life was going to become a little more complicated.